Hello everyone, my name is Kinetic and welcome to Soul Sacrifice Delta. This is a sort of upgraded version of the original game Soul Sacrifice available on the PlayStation Vita worldwide. Soul Sacrifice Delta currently is only available in Japan. It just came out a couple of days ago, but what I would like to do in this video is to talk about what makes Soul Sacrifice Delta different. What has changed? What are the new features and the new content in the game? Now, I've only spent a couple of days with it, and there's a lot of Japanese kanji that I don't fully understand, but I will try my best to give you my impressions and what I have discovered so far here in Soul Sacrifice Delta. Let's get started first by talking with Libra. Now, I'm going to assume that you've already got a good understanding of what Soul Sacrifice is about. So I will focus, because there's a lot to talk about in just that, focus on talking about what's different from the original game. The first thing you may or may not notice is the graphics seem to be a little bit smoother. Things have a new level of clarity, it feels like, in Soul Sacrifice. I've noticed an improvement in textures, sort of less jaggies, and overall the game just seems graphically to have improved a little bit overall, which is very, very nice. From here, I would also like to talk about the improvements to character customization. Now, before there was a pretty decent amount of character customization, but it could have been better, and it seems that Concept, the makers of Soul Sacrifice Delta, agree. Now, we have the usual options here. You can change your gender and your name, just like you could before in the original Soul Sacrifice. Here we have options for changing our face, and there are a lot more options this time around. I'm actually going to go backwards just to show you how far it goes. It actually goes A through Z, and then there's a double A, perhaps even more faces available to unlock or as free DLC later. Here, of course, we have the skin colors. There's quite a few of these as well. These are the different hairstyles. A lot of new hairstyles in Soul Sacrifice Delta. And here we have different hair colors. Probably one of the coolest things about the improvements to character customization is that you can change separately your chest piece and your bottom piece, your pants basically, to be different things that you want. This adds a new level of kind of customization and, how can I say, uniqueness to your character, which is going to really, I think, be very nice, especially for online multiplayer. Of course, you can change the colors. Here, we also have different headpieces. There are also separate headpieces that you can unlock for your character. Let me just show you guys. It already comes, when you unlock a costume, it seems, it already comes with a variety of colors. Unlike in Soul Sacrifice, the original game, you had to unlock the colors. It doesn't seem like you have to do so much of that in Soul Sacrifice Delta. There are certain colors, such as white and black, that you do have to unlock, and I'll show you how that works later. Since we're here on this screen, I might as well go through all of the features here in Delta. From this point here, you can select titles for your character, which you can unlock by fulfilling certain requirements in the game, by completing quests, for example, killing bosses, using certain spell types and things like that. You will unlock titles for your character. Here's the name change feature, and just like before, it costs Libra tiers. Over here we have the spells. Spells have changed a lot. There doesn't seem to be as many different ranks of spells this time around in Soul Sacrifice Delta. All of the spells that I've acquired start at 2 diamonds, and by diamonds I mean the shapes around the circles around the spell itself. All of them seem to start at 2 diamonds. And if you want to upgrade your spells, what you will get is you will get a star, very similar to the original game, but I think in order to get a more powerful version of the spell, you will actually need to get a higher ranking spell, such as a 3 diamond or a 4 diamond, and I think that there's something even higher than that here in Delta. There's a lot of new spell types in Soul Sacrifice Delta, such as the Spear, which is really, really awesome and fun to use. This is one of my favorite new spells in Soul Sacrifice Delta. Melee was something that I always enjoyed doing in the game, and it's great to see that they've added new ways to punish your enemies up close and personal. There are also spell combinations, which I will demonstrate later. There's also been a lot of balances as well. For example, the throw weapons now are not spammable. There's a much longer animation now involved when you're throwing these weapons at your enemies, and so you can't rapid fire like you could before, which was, to be honest, it was a bit overpowered and kind of ridiculous. It seems that they've gone over all of the spells and probably adjusted animation frames, the number of animation frames, damage numbers, and things like that. And it's also worth noting that some of the spells now, such as explosives, have not necessarily the same effect on your allies. So they've adjusted some of these now to only slightly interrupt you, but not cause you to lose your spell in some cases, and I haven't seen very many spells that knock you flat on your back either. The one that will still do that when cast and when in action is the Golem. It kind of makes sense, but I still don't necessarily like it, that the Golem is still kind of a burden to players who are trying to melee if somebody else casts Golem near a boss. But if you're communicating with your team, or if they just understand how to use Golems responsibly, hopefully, then they won't be as big of a problem and more of an assistance than a hindrance to your team. In terms of crafting, I think that's probably one of the biggest changes to Soul Sacrifice Delta. The way that you acquire spells now is quite different. You can go to this menu here, and then you have a list of all of the spells available in the game. So for example, we can go to the swords, right? And here it will show you that there are 4 different levels of this neutral axe type of weapon, and it will kind of give you an idea that there is another rank that you can acquire soon. And the best part about this is if you actually highlight and look at that, it will tell you a list of quests, and then you can click and go to that quest from here to go get that weapon, which is absolutely fantastic. That was one of the, if not my biggest problem with Soul Sacrifice, is that it was so hard to understand where to get certain weapons, because as you know, in order to do certain crafting, you have to acquire different weapons and then combine those to make a more powerful weapon. But it was such a pain before because there was nothing like this. There was no index to find where to get spells, but now there is, and it's really, really convenient. I like this system much better. Let's go back to the character customization. From here we have the normal crafting window, and you can see on the left hand side the items that are required, how many you need in order to craft the item that's on the right side. And here you can see there are 3 diamond versions of, for example, the strong fist attack, and what the requirements are on the left hand side in order to unlock that. So long story short, crafting and the acquisition of spells in Soul Sacrifice Delta is much, much more convenient, and I'm really happy that they did that. Down here in the corner we have the Black Rights page, Almost everything was brought over from the original game, Soul Sacrifice, here into Delta, except for one thing that I've noticed, or one thing that I've heard of, I should say, and that's the Blacklight Angelus. I'm not sure why it was excluded from being brought over to Soul Sacrifice Delta, but that's what seems to be the case. However, there are definitely a couple of additional slots here, and it will be interesting to see what new Blacklights are available in Soul Sacrifice Delta. I'll be sure once I've unlocked all of, or the majority of the Blacklights, to upload a video on how those work. Over here we have the usual section for adjusting the arm seals to give yourself a variety of different bonuses to attack, to health, and things like that. Just like Soul Sacrifice, the original game, you can adjust your life and your magic levels, and a couple of other options there. Over here next to our character customization is the Allies section. This is something else that's been significantly improved here in Soul Sacrifice Delta. You may remember in the original game they were kind of helpful, kind of a nuisance in battles. It seems in Delta that they've really done a good job of improving the AI though, and they really do help out in battles, in quests and missions and things like that when you're going up against monsters. Also, as you unlock new allies, you don't necessarily have to level them in order to get a full list of spells for them. They already come with 6 spells, which is great. I like that they've already given you a good variety of spells for your allies, so that's also going to make them a lot more useful in battles as well. And there also seems to be some kind of gifting system. I have tried this, but I haven't noticed exactly what is happening. But from this is my list here of my spells, what I can do is I seem to be able to gift my spells over to my ally, but I don't understand yet exactly what that does. I don't know if that gives them the chance to perhaps acquire that spell and then maybe later customize what spells they have available or what. When I know, I'll definitely make another video about it and give you sort of an updated impressions of what all these different features are in Soul Sacrifice Delta. But for now, just know that allies are a lot better. Before we continue, it would definitely be worth mentioning probably something you've already heard about, which is the new 3-faction system in Soul Sacrifice Delta. In the original game, as you know probably, it was almost all about sacrificing. All of the best ways to beat bosses, for the most part, the best builds, and generally the rewards were tilted in favor of players that were mostly a sacrifice type of build. There was, of course, a way to make life builds, and you could, if you wanted to, try and act as a healer, a protector, or savior of sorts, but the rewards most of the time just really didn't make you feel like you were getting what you deserved for helping out in your team. It seems that Concept has embraced even more so the variety of builds that are possible in the game, and they want to give players the freedom to make the kind of characters that they want to make. So if you want to, yes, of course, in Delta you can join Avalon here, and you could be the force that hunts down monsters and even humans and spills their blood for the purpose of gaining more power. Or, if you want, you can join Sanctuary, which is the force for protecting life. Be it humans or monsters, Sanctuary wants to just help everybody survive in this very chaotic and dangerous world. And the third faction we have is called Grimm, and they're sort of a balance between the two. They're not really so much in favor of protecting life or so much more interested in sacrificing. They are just concerned with their influence and keeping humans at the top of the food chain, keeping humans as the most influential and powerful force in the world. So you may be saving, you may be sacrificing. It will vary depending on each situation with Grimm. So with this system, obviously this means that overall there's a lot more variety in the types of builds that you can make. You can be the protector, healer, savior. You can be the powerful sorcerer with insanely deadly spells. You have just basically more choices and more flexibility, and the overall system seems to be improved to reward you better depending on what kind of build that you are playing in Delta.